So many stories breaking almost all the time, and new developing stories also happening. This is your catch-up segment. I'm Francesca, Phir-Banda. We start with a story where 17 public servants on the Copper Belt were getting rural hardship allowances when they lived in urban areas in 2016. This was heard when Copper Belt Permanent Secretary Elias Kamanga appeared before the Public Accounts Committee. Mukushi, Member of Parliament, Doreen Mwape, wanted to know why 17 workers who were not entitled to hardship allowance were getting the allowance. In his defense, Mr. Kamanga said some workers were lying to the provincial administration until he had a head count. Let's take a listen.
My question is, what was the basis of paying the officers rural hardship allowances when they were working in the areas not designated for the payment of the allowances?
I had to carry out a head count, physical head count, and I was personally involved with my team to go on the ground and establish where each officer was. So we physically required the officers to show their presence. And I want to inform you, Honorable Chair, and the members that as a result of this exercise, we have cleaned up much of the payroll, because now people are being placed exactly where they are working. Because there were officers that were sitting on a rural payroll, but meanwhile they were working in an urban setting. And it was difficult to trace this until we did the physical head count.
In studio, I'm joined by George Chomba, who's our resident analyst, as well as sub-editor here at Diamond TV. George, morning. Welcome to the catch-up segment.
Hey, good morning.
Your quick comment over what is transpiring in the Public Accounts Committee, with the latest one being this, I would call it a scandal.
The public service has propensity to make mistakes even when they can correct it. Because if somebody is going to a rural area, how do you place him in an urban area? And the person who is in an urban area, you place him in a rural area. This is not a problem for now. It's a problem of a long time ago, because those are little scandals that happen in the public service, which if government is not careful, will continue losing money. In the 1991s, there were ghost workers because they were not computerized. So even rural hardship allowance, what we are not being told is to recover money from ghost workers. If somebody does not belong to the rural area, the person who employed that person to belong to the rural area should be surcharged. That is the moral issue.
Exactly, because it's also about morality. I mean, here you are, you're in the Lusaka, and you're receiving rural hardship allowance. Why not bring it up and say, what do you think is the caliber of these people who actually keep on receiving this rural hardship allowance when they very well know that they're not entitled to it? They're in the urban areas.
In fact, the other moral issue is, if I'm not entitled to rural hardship allowance, why should I receive it? Is there a connivance between the human resource in terms of when I get the rural hardship allowance, I share it with the person who is giving me that? I can tell you that I have a background of being a civil servant. And rules are very strict in terms of how you receive certain allowances. And if you receive an entitlement which is yours, which is not yours, that is theft. And theft, you can report it to the police. Why are people making excuses of an allowance which is not it's not your entitlement? You just say, we cleaned up the system and all that. They should be, we cleaned up the system and these people have been arrested for theft.
To book, exactly. Because so far, apart from that, we've heard of cases, the issue of somebody being transferred.
Yeah.
But they still keep receiving a salary they were receiving when they were in another province. And it goes on for years, undetected. How possible is that even?
This won't end until somebody puts his foot down. We'll keep on writing this in the Auditor General's report, but I'm happy, and what I can tell you, Jonah and Francesca, is that the Public Accounts Committee yesterday said we will no longer just rebuke you and talk to you about it. We are going to recommend that permanent secretaries are surcharged. Now, surcharging in the public service means for a permanent secretary who is appointed by the president or the secretary to the cabinet, it means dismissal. It's a wake-up call, because what will happen is that permanent secretary will start now fearing. I hope the chairman of the public accounts committee wasn't also playing to the gallery. They should go ahead and surcharge permanent secretaries so that they can do their work. Because most of the things that happen in the public service are not the fault of the permanent secretaries. They are the fault of the people who are down there. Because they will just bring a check on Friday around 16 hours. Sir, this is an agent matter. Can
when
you
they
sign?
know that he's about to knock off,
They will
not pay particular attention.
Maybe the permanent secretary will stay a little longer to scrutinize some of these things, so that the public service starts operating in a way where things are going to happen because of the systems in government.
All right, now acts suggesting fraud and misappropriation of public funds surfaced when Works and Supply Permanent Secretary Joe Kapembwa appeared before the Parliament Accounts Committee yesterday to explain audit queries in the 2016 Auditor Generals report. Mr. Kapembwa, who was appearing before the committee for the second time after being sent away 2 weeks ago, was at pains to explain the supply and installation of 26 air conditioners at a cost of 300,000 kwacha at Lothian House Lodge in Kitwe. Displeased with the answers, Public Accounts Committee Chairperson Howard Kunda asked the presence of the contractor who made damaging revelation against the Permanent Secretary's submission. So while Mr. Kapembwa said the contract awarded to Thorons Investment Limited was aimed at supplying 20 air conditioners with specifications of 18 BTU and 12 BTU, the supplier, Mwapembai, said that the ministry was supplied with 50, of which 4 were 12 BTU air conditioners and 3 were 18 BTU. Mr. Mbai informed the committee that the other 43 air conditioners were 9 BTU. Mr. Kunda warned that permanent secretaries who never supplied the correct information when they appeared before the committee will be recommended for surcharge. And Mr. Kapembwa, who was appointed a few months ago, indicated that disciplinary measures will be taken against officers cited in the Auditor General's report. Well, of course, you've highlighted the fact that it's majority of these problems are at the bottom, but the auditor, the permanent secretary, obviously was involved in the signage of 300,000 kwacha, because I think this is quite a significant amount of money. It was quite a huge purchase. So how exactly did the permanent secretary not know the amount of the aircons that were being paid for? And how, if you would ask, how are they thinking these 26 aircons would cost 300,000 kwacha?
I think we should, first of all, I sympathize with permanent secretary. He's very new in the ministry. And the unfortunate part is that when you are a new permanent secretary, they won't call your predecessor.
But isn't there something like handover notes and for somebody to continue?
Yes, there is handing over. But you see, the one who is going to sign documents is the person
who is there.
Who left.
Oh, okay.
And they are looking at the Auditor General's report of 2016. So, there could be a handover, and you are given notes which are... and the Public Accounts Committee yesterday, they did very well, because they even summoned the contractor. Now, the contractor, obviously, they wouldn't like to lie. They would like to tell the truth. The public service has been used to the era of telling the opposite of the truth. So the Public Accounts Committee of Howard Kunda is performing their raw duty of ensuring that they account. That's why I was suggesting here that they go further. The surcharge means that you follow the law. If there was any fraud, they have the ability to recommend to the Anti-Corruption Commission. Because what happens in these, if you go into the ministries, you find that one ream of paper in one ministry is costing 500 kwacha. In the other ministry, it's costing 10,000 kwacha. And nobody does anything about it. So, in this case, the supplier appeared and he was shivering. He was on TV, and people should pay attention and watch television. That is Parliament. He was even shivering because when the permanent secretary was giving his testimony about the 300,000 computers, he gave different figures and different specifications. When he appeared, he also gave different. Now, this case is not yet over. According to Howard Kuda, it will be followed up so that the people can know what really transpired. But inflating of quotations in public procurement is a known thing.
But you see, the thing is, another thing is, Mr. Kapembwa, yes, was appointed recently. He indicated that disciplinary measures will be taken. So the ministry did not do their own analysis of what was going on. Why do they have to wait for the Public Accounts Committee to sit and then after that disciplinary measures will be taken?
What I would say is that the Auditor General, when they sat, they found all these problems. Maybe what he never anticipated was that the Public Accounts Committee would go further into inquiring into these matters. So that's where the problem is. That's why Howard Kunda, indicated that this case is not yet over because we are going to follow it until its logical conclusion. But this, the bottom line is this is how fraud, misappropriation of funds is done. But I must commend the Public Accounts Committee that they did a good job. And they should inform the public because he was directed to form committees to investigate how this money was used or utilized and so that.
As we wind up our catch-up segment, 8 Chinese nationals have been inducted as Zambia Police Reserves at a ceremony that took place at the Zambia Chinese Association offices in Kabulonga. The Chinese nationals also donated 2 vehicles to the Zambia police. Police spokesperson Esther Katongo says the police reserves are backed by Cap 117 of the laws of Zambia, known as the Zambia Reserve Act. Reserve officers in Zambia have the powers to arrest and detain any suspects. Very quickly, as we wind up our catch-up segment, your comment on that. This has gone viral on social media, and somehow it has shown people's ignorance on how much they know about one becoming a reserve police. Your comment?
The first thing that we have to understand is that we have got so many laws in Zambia which don't agree with the present generation. The fact is that the law is there, Cap 117, that you can engage a reservist, whether a Zambian or foreigner. But maybe the displeasure is the moral aspect. How do we engage a foreigner? Who are they going to guard? What is it that they are going to guard? Are they going to help out their nationals to commit crime? And then they say it's not them. That's the moral aspect. So legality and legitimacy are 2 different things. The other things is that people in communities as Zambians, they have seen what maybe reservists have done. They will maybe wear a uniform, be at a roadblock.
Or they'll be trigger happy.
Yes, and commit crime. But how do you come about with a reservist or a reserve? You have a reserve because you have enough. And in Zambia, do we have enough police officers to police crime? If the cry is that we haven't got enough police, then you don't need reserves, you need police officers. So that's where the problem is. So yes, the law is there, you can engage reserve police, but you can only reserve if you have supplies. It's like you can only have a savings account if you have got enough in your main account. So the Inspector General of Police or the Ministry of Home Affairs, first of all, should look at having enough police officers before they talk about reserves.
And the 2 reserves actually donated 2 vehicles. What do you think about that?
It's
I
surprising.
think they're the only reserve
You know,
officers who have donated.
it's surprising. I would love to see the Inspector General of Police going to all the reserves in Mansa, because it's not only foreigners.
Because, of course, it's now a question of how was it? Was it just a surprise to the Inspector General? Also, he's like, oh, okay, so this is a surprise, or there was a communication that at the same induction, we're going to give you 2 cars as well. So
It might have been communicated because the car, I think, is already branded. So, yeah.
No, but this is what we are saying, because a foreigner or a Zambian can be a reserve. So we would like to see the Inspector General of Police going to Mansa, going to Luapula. But you see, this is one point I would say. As the Zambians, are we able to do an exchange program?
Where I can also be a reserve police in China. Yeah.
Well, provided you donate a car.
I'll donate my services as a cop.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, that is a very big story. We'll keep updating you on new developments. That's why we come to the end of the Diamond Breakfast. Join us tomorrow at the same time. The news is up next. Good morning.